With several tweets like this getting over 1 million views of the Thunder flopping, you would think that the NBA would realize it has an issue. Their defending champions and MVP keep flopping for wins, but we as fans have two problems. One, the numbers don't lie. The Western Conference Finals are pulling in a record viewership, which means two, when Adam Silver was directly asked about flopping, he said,
"Players may be falling down, players may be reacting to a call, but then to me, if they're not fooling the referees, the players are taught to sell calls these days." But the officiating is incredible.
Which would be fine if selling calls was not directly leading to fooling the refs, creating a brand of basketball that many have called an unwatchable product. Even worse, in this series, the refs have been put on full blast. We can see here in a close 10-point game, the ball clearly went off of Chet Holmgren's foot, but Mitch Johnson's challenge was ignored. Then the refs gave Mitch Johnson a tech for complaining. So at this point, we need to have a real discussion. Is this whole flopping narrative getting overblown? Do the viewership numbers speak for themselves, or will this flopping narrative eventually come back to bite the NBA? And if so, how can the league fix this as soon as possible? Because our eyes are not lying. After game 4, Tom Haberstroh counted all of the times Shai fell to the ground, and Shai has fallen to the ground 46 times in the playoffs already, more than other NBA stars, as we can see. But also, half the time Shai has fallen, he has drawn a foul call. Let's keep in mind that the Thunder also swept the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, so Shai played in less games as well. This is not some made-up narrative on Twitter. The stats are right here in front of us. Shai is being rewarded for falling more than anyone else. And yes, sometimes when he falls, he is fouled. In this tweet that ranks all of the falls Shai has had in the playoffs so far, we can see that a few times he is dragged to the floor on a clear foul. But in several other plays, he is just taking a normal jump shot and crumples to the ground like he was just attacked. This kind of falling has led to an insane stat. Entering game 6, Shai has made 38 field goals against the Spurs and 49 free throws. He had 17 free throw attempts in game 5 alone. What are we doing here? We should be watching 2 of the most talented teams in the NBA going blow for blow. Instead, the refs are stepping in way too much, and at times we are watching a straight up free throw contest. This to me is just not fun basketball, but I do want to make one thing clear. There will be comments calling me a sellout for falling for this narrative, but I, and many others, just do not find this fun to watch. That is what my own eyes tell me. But I'll also even things out here, because yes, Wemby does flop at times too. Here's him flopping last series against the Wolves in what was an all-time acting job. And here is also Wemby seemingly telling Mason Plumlee and Bismack Biyombo to throw in some hard fouls, which Plumlee and Biyombo instantly did. Jared McCain was not flopping on these ones. So I'll certainly admit the flopping can go both ways. But I think the biggest problem here is that NBA players as a whole are just flopping way too much, and it is getting rewarded. But before we continue, I'm very excited to thank Courtyard.io for sponsoring today's video. On Courtyard, you can buy packs of sports cards, Pokemon cards, or comics where you will pull graded cards instantly. And then this is where it gets really cool. You have the option to digitize that pulled card and keep it in Courtyard's temperature-controlled vault, where it is insured at market value and you get to save on shipping fees. Or if you want, you can redeem that item for shipping and have it sent to you right away. Courtyard gives you the decision, and they turn a marketplace into entertainment that feels like a game. Every pack is priced at the expected value. The odds for the different types of pulls you can get are right there on the screen. And if you don't like what you got, Courtyard has a buyback offer on every single pack. They guarantee a 90% fair market buyback offer every time. So head over to Courtyard, use the QR code on the screen or the link in the description, and use my promo code CORZEMBA15 for 15% off of your order at checkout. We love a deal. That is CORZEMBA15 for 15% off of your order at checkout. Thank you to Courtyard.io for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get back into that video. The NBA already has rules in place that could call technical fouls on these flops. They choose not to use these rules. And I'll stand strong that while the Spurs are flopping to some degree, and that while most, if not all, NBA players flop to some degree, the Thunder are getting all of the heat for a very good reason.
Go. Follows the screen. Gilgeous-Alexander.
The defense for Shai is that players have always sold contact, that there have been big floppers before him, but that doesn't mean we liked flopping before, and that also doesn't mean as fans we can't take a stand right now and decide, hey, NBA, we don't like this. Get rid of it, because there are moments in history where fans all don't like something, like flopping, and it takes a single player or team to push us over the limits of what we'll tolerate. Like in baseball, a lot of people hated steroids, but it wasn't until Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire were breaking home run records that changes actually came. So maybe Shai winning multiple MVPs and the Thunder winning a title and possibly another one soon are what we've needed to finally see a change. Because let me ask you a question. When the NBA rewards flopping, what ends up happening? Teams learn that if you flop, you win with no downside, which means that in order to even the playing field, even the most ethical teams are going to need to fall to the ground. They're going to need to flop to get the refs' attention, because how else are they supposed to win? And right now with the Thunder, we can't believe what we're seeing. But it's not just the flopping. The refs have been truly awful. But on this play, watch as Luke Cornett goes up for a tip-in. It's blocked by Cason Wallace on a play that many, including me, thought was goaltending. This sequence would end with Luke Cornett getting the foul. And so maybe you don't think much of this. Maybe you think that the refs are always making bad calls. But the overwhelming narrative of fans right now is that Oklahoma City is getting an extremely favorable whistle, and some are even going as far as to say this has always been the script. On the NBA website on May 26th, it was captured that the league had separated two teams in its store as finals bound. The Knicks, who were in the finals, and the Thunder, who were still playing in the Western Conference Finals. A simple mistake by someone, probably, but there's a reason why people keep jumping at these mistakes. There's a reason why some people are comparing the NBA to the WWE and saying it's all fixed. It feels like when watching a Thunder game, the Thunder are both able to play extremely physical themselves while also getting the more favorable calls. A game was even made called Unethical Hoops that is similar to the game Operation, only it featured Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a bunch of mini basketballs in him, and the goal of the game was to get one of the basketballs without fouling Shai. A commercial for this game was even produced. Shai, for his part, had his legal team send a cease and desist letter to get this product canceled. This kind of thing matters to casual fans. The NBA wants to keep attracting a bigger audience, but to the guys who love football and baseball and only tune into the NBA playoffs, who might tune into the regular season if they like what they see, a lot of those guys are turning off the games and calling them unwatchable because of the flopping and because of the refs. And Adam Silver knows what everyone is thinking. He's referred to the NBA as a highlight league because the league wants to produce as many views as possible on social media. I personally don't like this either. I wish the league referred to itself as a television league that got social media clips as a byproduct of a great basketball game, but that has not been Adam Silver's aim. And when it comes to flopping, in the clip we watched earlier, he also went on to redirect with this.
I think in terms of replay, for example, out of bounds, those calls will be done by an AI automated system. It'll be instantaneous, it'll be automatic. You won't have to deal with challenges on those calls.
So Adam Silver is clearly talking about the refs and what can be done on incorrect out of bounds calls, which means if the NBA wants, they can have the same discussion about flopping and what the refs are doing to stop it. Clearly, they're not having those discussions. Clearly, the NBA is happy with the views they are getting, and they don't mind the hateful clips that are posted on social media because they're drawing huge views. Except, we don't know the long-term effects here. It's true. The Western Conference Finals has pulled in historic view numbers. The Thunder versus the Knicks will also probably pull in insane numbers. But the NBA can't ignore a potential huge problem on the horizon. They have a young potential dynasty in the Thunder. They have a young back-to-back MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the Thunder are easily the most hated team in the league, while Shai is the most hated player in the league. Now, we've seen villains in the NBA before. A lot of people have rooted against LeBron, especially when he was playing in Miami. A lot of people did not like Draymond Green when the Warriors were winning championships. Villains are a part of sports, but even if you rooted against LeBron, he was exciting to watch. Even if you rooted against Draymond, you were watching Steph Curry drain 30-foot jumpers. If you root against Shai, it's possible you watch him fall to the floor and then you turn off your TV. If the Thunder are champions again, a tremendous amount of people will say they don't want to watch a league that highlights flopping. And we also really need to consider the effects on basketball as a whole. If this is where flopping is right now. What happens when it gets more refined and players get even better at selling calls? Little kids always want to emulate the game's biggest stars. And there are already clips popping up of these little kids selling calls with the best of them. Is this what we actually want from basketball long term? And maybe the craziest part, we know the NBA can change this in a heartbeat because they already have. To begin the 2021 season, the NBA cracked down on non-basketball moves. They said if a player tried to manufacture contact, the NBA was no longer going to call it. And it worked. The refs stopped calling these fouls, scoring only went down by 6.1 points per game on average. The games were more fun to watch, but guess what? The players hated it. The stars in particular, because of the top 15 points per game leaders in 2020, 13 of them were scoring less points per game in 2021. These stars complained, so the NBA changed things back to how they are now. But we saw with tanking, eventually things go too far. Just like with flopping, teams have been tanking for as long as we can remember. But the NBA realized, hey, this is not good for our product. We'd rather have games stay competitive for the whole season. We don't want teams choosing to lose. So they just completely changed the draft lottery. Now, the teams that finish with the 3 worst records in the NBA are going to get 2 ping pong balls in the NBA draft lottery, while the teams that finish 4th through 10th are going to get 3. That is an extreme change. The worst 3 teams in the league will not have the best odds in the draft, but it shows just how far the NBA is willing to go to get rid of tanking because they see it as a priority. So why don't they do the same with flopping? I think unfortunately it's that the NBA wants to protect its players from embarrassment. No star wants to be publicly outed for flopping. Being labeled a flopper, as Shai knows, severely hurts your brand. But the NBA doesn't need to protect its players from this embarrassment. The worst thing that would happen to an NBA player with flopping rules put in place is that they would get a technical foul from flopping, or they would even get suspended. Back in 2013, the NBA did put a rule system in place that would do this. Those rules said that if you got caught flopping 5 or more times, you could get suspended. But the NBA never held strong to these rules either because they didn't want to shame their own players. But it's also because of this fact that we know that if the NBA is willing to give out techs and suspend players, because players don't want to be shamed, they will stop flopping. The only question is, will Shai and the Thunder be the ones who finally get the NBA to switch things up? Or are we going to need to see a huge injury happen off of a flop? Or for multiple teams to emerge as big time floppers for the NBA to finally do something? Hopefully not, but with what Adam Silver has recently said, I will admit I am worried. So there we have it. Thank you for watching today's video. If you did, I really think you're going to like the videos that are on the screen. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting. You are awesome. We all know it. And as always, have an awesome day and cue that music.